On this. Welcome to Engineered Muscle Podcast number 18, guys. Today, Coach Mo and Madison will be talking about, take it away, Madison, what are we talking about today?
Exercise variation, what exercise variation is, how much should you use, how much is appropriate, what is the benefit and the negatives. And, a lot of times, especially when I see beginner lifters and guys that I see in the gym, like they switch around their exercises a lot, and they've heard like the term like muscle confusion and all this stuff, and they think they should be changing their exercises variations all the time, like doing flat bench one day, incline the next, like the next time they do chest or a machine or whatever. So we're going to kind of dive into that topic, really break it down on how much variation is appropriate and what is optimal for you.
That's such a great topic, especially like just for the sake of this episode, let's just focus on the chest. Just because everyone can kind of relate to it. I mean, a lot of people, they start lifting in high school, especially for our guys who played football and stuff. And one of the first things, they start doing is bench pressing.
How much you bench, bro?
Yeah, man, that's like I feel like that question was written in Bible like 2,000 years ago. And everyone,
Jesus was the biggest bencher in town.
That's
why
true.
They fight him.
And no, but I remember Charles Glass. I remember watching a video with Charles training Mark Bell.
And
in that video, Charles was referencing how it's not the bodybuilders who have the best chest, it's the powerlifters. Because powerlifters, when they arch with that bench like angle, they develop the most beautiful chest. And I remember thinking like there are at least like 5 to 10 exercises that a person can do at any gym with chest. Because chest is one of those, like, you can start with push-ups. You can even do it without much equipment. And it's also one of those exercises that you see a lot of guys, those muscle groups that a lot of guys want to enhance, because every wants to look wide, that develop that wider chest, narrow waist, that whole V-taper. So in your opinion, like, what misconceptions do you think people have about the chest muscles, and why do they stick to just bench pressing, or should they even, like, let's just start with that, like the overall picture of it?
I think it comes from a couple different angles on that. I think bench is just very well known, and it's also becomes a point of pride and also ego to be able to have a big bench. Like today, people are much more aware of powerlifting. People are much more aware of bodybuilding, and they're a lot more separated. Whereas back in the day, especially with bros, there was less kind of awareness of the two and the differences and really what's what. And so any guy that wants a chest will usually be also benching, but then also really cares about their bench. So that when they get asked how much you bench, bro, they can be like, oh, I bench 3-4 plates, right? And that was the source of pride in a lot of ways. But with that, I don't want to get off topic too much, but the bench is a fantastic chest exercise, but for some people, it's really not the best chest developer. So it's also important to delineate for yourself what is your goal, right? If your goal is to be a power lifter and to be a strong bencher, you need to bench. But if you're a bodybuilder and you just care about chest development, you don't necessarily have to bench. Depending on how your bone lengths are and your leverages, the bench press might not be an effective chest building exercise for you. You might be better off using a machine or even dumbbells or some other variation that's just you are able to feel it in your chest more. Maybe you just get a ton of shoulders and triceps out of the bench, but really not a lot of chest. So for you, bench won't be a good chest builder. So that's an important delineation to make, that depending on what your goal is, you need to be able to choose appropriate tools. But as far as we're starting to get into variation, how often, like, so a lot of people will, I see two things. This is really what I see most common with new lifters and gym bros, right? Gym bro A comes and does the exact same routine every time he comes to the gym. He does bench, flies, and curls, right, or whatever. And he does that every single time. He does like
Let's
the
call
same.
him Carl.
Carl.
Carl does the same thing every day.
It's with an A. It's with an A name.
Adam.
Adam does the same workout every time, right? Same reps, same weight, same everything, and it's always the same variation. And then we have powerlifter B. We'll call him Bob, right? So now Bob comes in and every workout is something different. So if he did bench press last week, now he's doing a machine press. Next week he's doing incline press. Week after that he's doing cable press, etc. Right? So he's doing a different variation every single week. And both these methods are not optimal, but those are very, very common. So how often becomes the question? How often should I change the exercises that I'm doing? So like if you're doing 4 exercises, you do a press, you do 3 presses and a chest fly, say, right? So you bench, incline press, dumbbell fly, say, okay? When should you change that? When should you switch those variations? When should you go to maybe incline press, cable press, incline dumbbell, machine fly, or whatever, right? How often should that change? And so the answer to that really is it depends, and it depends on how advanced of a lifter you are. So what the benefit of variation is.
Really, I'm really fucking advanced. I'm so advanced that they don't even have a PhD for my stuff. and I think like I just wanted to pause you there. A lot of people that are into bodybuilding, beginners, intermediates, everybody thinks they're advanced.
Yes, that's also very true.
We're a sport of very ego-driven people. I mean, otherwise, think about it, right? On my Instagram, I have more guys and girls like taking less pictures of showing off their abs than almost every other sport. In every other sport, there's some other like method of seeing results. In our sport, it's very egotistical. Like we have.
Absolutely.
In powerlifting, it's all about numbers. In bodybuilding, it's all about muscles and how shredded you are. Like, so we're talking like almost everybody listening to this probably thinks they're like advanced. So,
well, and I just want to say to everyone that's listening, being advanced isn't a good thing. You want to be a noob as long as you can, because being a noob means you're making results with basically anything, and being an intermediate means it's a little harder to get results, and now you have to start thinking more. But advanced, it's really hard to get results. It's really hard to build muscle. It's really hard to make progress. And so you really don't want to be advanced. It's a curse being advanced, because then you really got to fucking work extra hard. You have to be extra smart. You have to have all those details dialed in. You have to be eating perfectly. You have to have all your ducks in a row, where you can get away with a lot of that shit when you're a noob or an intermediate. So don't just think you're advanced. And also an advanced lifter, depending on how they've been training, can be anywhere between 3 to 5 or 8 years, depending on the level that you've been working at. But so before I break down what like each beginner, intermediate, and advanced should do as far as variation, I'm just going to go like what variation is, or what the variation is to your body, right? So when you change the movement that you're doing, you're changing the stimulus, you're changing the stress to your body. So it's something new, it's something novel. And that allows it to be something unique. And so it's something you can adapt to again. So what's really important in this whole topic is how your body adapts, right? You introduce the stress, your body recovers from that stress, and then it adapts to the stress. And that's the process that we go, right? We train, we recover from that training, and we get stronger. We train, we recover from that training, we get stronger. And it slowly builds, right? So, but there becomes a point of diminishing returns. Your body's like, I have now gotten good at bench. I'm a good bencher now. Now I'm only getting a little bit, whereas I was getting +5 before. Now I'm only getting +1. So my rate of return has greatly decreased because my body just got really used to that stress, which is a good thing because now I'm a lot better of a bencher, but it's a bad thing because I'm not getting as much out of it. So the use of using some variety is now, okay, well, we're going to do incline now. Your body goes, oh, this is new. And you start getting those 5 points again, right? 5 point, 5 point, 5 point, before it starts getting the diminishing returns 1 point, 1 point. But again, you want to be able to get better at doing. If you do something, especially for beginners. If you're new to benching, you're gonna be making progress on bench for a long time because it's still very new to you. Your body's getting better at it, and you want it to get better at it. You want to get better at benching because then you're gonna be able to get more out of it because you're now better at the movement. You're able to do it better, and you're adapting to it. All right, that point of diminishing returns for you is a lot farther away. So for the beginner, the intermediate, and the advanced, beginners should stick with it. When you're doing something, stick with almost the exact same variations for a pretty good amount of time. Probably at least 2 months, maybe 3 to 5 months before you really switch up your variations. And then you do the same thing for that set of variations, kind of get really good at them.
No, I would just add that it's so true what he's saying there. Like a practical example is like, I remember when I started lifting, I hired a coach and he gave me like the most cookie cutter program there is on the market, like very cookie cutter. But bro, like
3 sets of 10, 3 sets of 8.
Yeah, like it gave me direction, right? So I was just like, I was so sticking with it. I would do those exercises to the T and I started making some solid gains. And then he wasn't very responsive at all. Like I would message him about certain things and he would get back to me like 3 days later. But it didn't matter because in the beginning I was making gains. Like I was making gains. It was solid. And then when I started hitting plateaus, and I started feeling like shit, like I didn't know what's happening and I wasn't seeing those gains. First of all, we should do an entirely new episode on plateaus. I was at a conference last week and a speaker pissed me off a lot. He said he was talking about plateaus and he literally had like no muscle on his body. So I just cried internally. But that's for another episode. So I started hitting plateaus, but I realized at that time I changed the course. But one of my clients, he was following like a cookie cutter program from bodybuilding.com and he just wasn't losing any weight and wasn't making many gains. I looked at the program and it was just shitty looking program. And as soon as we switched him over to mine and more customized to his, we started seeing results. So I guess like the point of what Madison is saying, guys, is that like when you go work out and you like, and then like, see, everything in here is so difficult to really like dive into because everything has like a facet of things we can talk about, right? Like we can fucking talk about what equates to progress. What is progress? Like for a lot of you is going to be different things that are making progress. And one of the things that a lot of you struggle with, and I've seen in my own career as a coach, is that beginners start off by fucking up their newbie gains by wanting to lose extreme amount of fat loss, and you end up putting them in a deep caloric deficit, and then literally like that advantage you have is getting fucked up by the other side. Because I don't know if it's just my opinion, but I kind of live with it, and that is like bodybuilding is a sport where you are building muscle, but I see a lot of guys in the beginning get too restrictive. And what I mean by that is like, you have guys, your body grows with extra calories and extra food. A lot of you end up like eating normal shit like pizza here and there and just getting those calories in because a lot of you guys are small. I hate to say it, but a lot of you are small. I was one of that. And one of the things that I did back in the day that sucked was I got too restrictive. I was literally eating chicken breast, broccoli, and sweet potatoes. And while that food, eat too much of that. Like that, how much are you gonna eat of that? 2 breasts a day, like, and a protein shake? No, like what if versus the other guy, my friend was making more gains than me and he would drink beer and he would just eat and he would just eat. Whenever he was feeling hungry, he would just eat. Whereas me, I was looking at my fucking calories and my fucking macros and shit like that. And I just have this thing where I'm like, people who know less but actually do more end up getting better results. Versus analysis paralysis fucks people up. So in the beginning, like,
right, because at the end of the day, it's action that counts.
No, dude, and like think about this, right? Like, and you probably have a different opinion on this, but like in off season, the guys like look at Alberto Nunez, right? Alberto Nunez fucking eats Panda Express, and he literally knows his shit because he's been doing it for 20 years. But he eats Panda, and he eats out, and he lives his life. He drinks beer. But on season, he has one of the best physiques there is. And so do a lot of other guys. But then like there are a lot of people who are not on social media who live their life. Like they go out on the barbecues, they eat chicken wings, they do all of that. And some of them end up getting better results than people on the other side who live very restrictive life, who are socially, even during on season, they're very restrictive. And I think like if you're a small guy, you should prioritize eating more food, and yeah, you'll get fat, but I would rather have you get fat, and because we can take that layer of fat off when we come in the prep. But it's so hard to like, a lot of you struggle, like, because guys start lifting to get big, right? They want to be the big guy. A lot
Right.
of this, and like my thing is, last thing I'll say, and I'll give it back to Madison, is that in business, if a certain strategy, if reading more books, if having more knowledge isn't making you more money, then that knowledge is kind of useless.
Mm-hmm.
That's just my thing. Same here. If knowing too much the science of metabolism and biochemistry and this and that is not getting you the results that you want, then you need a new set of knowledge. You need to try something different. And that's just been my philosophy. Like I would rather have someone like be like a little more lenient, live a normal life during off season and actually eat, like fucking eat. Most of you aren't eating enough and you'll be small. Like there's nothing worse than a small guy, a skinny guy with abs. I was that guy and it doesn't look very impressive. You want to be fucking big, you want to have some size, and you want to be shredded. And that's the ultimate goal of engineered muscle, because we're engineering our bodies to be that. So Madison, like, do you agree with that, disagree with that? And then we'll take it back to the variation. I don't know.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I mean, I agree. You gotta, at the end of the day, what you are doing matters more than what you know. That said, you can do better things if you know more, but only if you're actually doing them, right? So only what you put into practice, and that's why we're engineered muscle, not just science muscle, right? Only what you're putting into practice at the end of the day counts. Only the things that you're doing counts. And what I think for guys who are really struggling, well, because also one of the things is muscle takes longer to build. It's a long process, right? So to put on significant amount of size takes a long time. So it's something you want to be doing and focusing on and always putting your efforts towards, because at the end of the day, that's what's going to take the longest to happen. Cutting fat doesn't always necessarily take that long. I mean, it takes some time, especially if you have a lot to lose, but it's not as slow as muscle. That's ultimately a very rate limited process, something that you can only go so fast. You can't rush it. So you want to get everything out of it that you can, and so you can get as much distance on that front as you can. For guys that are struggling to have enough size, off season can't be lackadaisical. You got to be in there with the same mentality and the same aggression that you have for like a cut or a pre-contest, but you got to do it on the other side. You got to be eating aggressively. You got to be pushing the calories. Make sure you're getting proper nutrition, but significant calories, and you're not eating chicken breast and broccoli, right? You're eating beef and red meat and fat and carbs, and you're making sure you're getting everything you need. And it's not to say that you should pig out and eat fucking pizzas and ice cream and shit, right? You don't want to get fat. You want it to be good quality nutrition, but you do need to eat your face off, especially if you're a hard gainer and you're like a really lean guy. You really got to eat your face off. And you should be training really fucking hard too. You got to put that demand and then feed it, and you'll grow really well. And that's something that I focus on with a lot of my clients, fucking slapping mass on them. And that's what's really important, is being able to train really hard, give a really good stimulus, and then recover from it and eat and grow.
No, I agree. I like that part about nutrition. Let's go back to the variation side. So as beginner or intermediates, a lot of the time what I see as a personal trainer is that people do too much variation.
Right.
Like
right.
I've made, and everything that I'm saying here, guys, I've made the same mistakes, and we all have made those mistakes, and which is like every week switching up your workouts or going from a workout to workout. And if you do not see, like, if how the fuck are you supposed to monitor progress if your exercises are changing every week?
Right.
So Madison, answer this question for us. So how do you keep, like, how do you monitor progress on bench if the goal is to grow on bench, but like you just have this like
strength? Is the goal strength of bench press?
What do you think? I think, like, my opinion on strength versus muscle is that always aim for strength, because muscle, and you'll gain strength faster than you can gain muscle, but the strength will bring along muscle. Isn't that the case?
Yeah. Yes and no. For
Yeah.
me, there's a little bit of a different mindset when I go to my strength work versus my muscle building work, particularly like if we're talking bench press, right? So if I go to if I'm in strength mode and I go to bench press, I'm setting up and my focus is on the movement. I bring it down and I just explode up as hard as I can with as much muscle as possible. I just want it to be a nice smooth rep. I want the groove to be really well, and I want the bar to move well, right? But if I'm muscle building, I do it very differently. I control it. I'm making sure I'm feeling it in my pecs, and then I'm squeezing through my pecs as I come up, and I want the tension in a certain spot. And just my mindset is a bit different, and the way that it moves is just a little bit different. And it's very nuanced, and it's a little more intermediate. I wouldn't say it's advanced, but the mindset bit is important there. But I think so. I think you're talking to the point of tracking progress on bench, and then how and variation, right? That's where you were going.
Yeah, like, I mean, if you look at, like, I mean, right now I have in front of me like Mark Rippetoe's book, and both of them, and he's always about like doing like 3 or 4 exercises per workout and just knowing your progression rate. And when you look at like like a bodybuilding.com, a workout program on bodybuilding.com, a lot of them are like fucking 9 exercises, 7, 8, 9 exercises. And that's where a lot of beginners lose that. They forget what it's all about, because we're not progressively overloading on the number of exercises. We're progressively overloading on the actual exercise. So, like, how can a beginner keep track of it?
You can progressively overload on both, right? That you can legitimately do both. But I think what this conversation becomes about now is, right, so you have your total variations that you do, and then you also have what variations you're using, right? So in a given workout, you might be using 4 variations. Well, let's say you're a beginner, okay? You know how to do, if we're talking chest, you know a total of 10 chest exercises, okay? And that's all the ones you ever do. And in one workout, you might do 5, okay? And you could make it up to the 10 and do every one you know how to do. But those are all the ones that you've ever done, right? Is, you know, these 10 and your body has performed those before. And so you don't have a very big library, whereas an advanced person might have 25, 50 different exercises that they know, right? But then it's how many you're using at the time, and then how often you're switching them to.
Right.
Right. So a beginner, you don't want your library to be that big. You want to be able to get good at stuff before you start adding new things. If you haven't mastered any of these, the first 5, you don't want to add 6 through 10. You want to get good at the bench, the incline, whatever, what have you, right? Before you start introducing the bench with bands, the hammer strength press, you know, whatever these other variations are. You don't want too many, because you want to be good at the ones that you already know, and you want to leave enough time to get good at those. So that also has to do with how soon you switch them out. As a beginner, you want to leave enough time to get good at them. You want to be able to familiarize yourself and be good at the exercise. Because if you've never done bench before, if you bench one week, do something the next week, and then it's 5 more weeks before you do regular bench again, how are you ever going to get good at bench? Right? You're not going to get good. But for someone who's advanced, because so the other side of the coin, the other extreme, right? I can go weeks without benching, but if I go to bench again, I know how to do it already, because I've already done it for years, right? My library is a lot bigger, and I'm already good at those things. I'm already good at this. I'm already good at that. I don't have to learn the movement. I've already learned them. They're already in my library. So I can switch between those and still be able to perform them adequately, whereas a beginner is not going to be able to do that, right? And an intermediate is somewhere in between. An intermediate is going to have a medium-sized library and use a medium size at a given time. And again, you don't want to necessarily have to have this big library. An advanced person needs it in order to get.
Can I add something there?
Yeah.
I would say, like, to answer everybody's question, because I know everybody just like the title of this podcast is how often should you change your exercises? I say keep the big compounds in there regardless. Like the isolation work can change. Like if you want to like
Mhm.
1 week, I mean, even then I wouldn't change it. I like to change up the isolation work every 4 weeks. I like to do it consistently for 4 weeks and then I change it up a little bit. But the big lifts, like
Right? But that's because you're intermediate. That's a great time frame for an intermediate. Right? About 4 to 6 weeks for an intermediate is a great rotation rate,
mhm,
where you switch whatever you're switching. Whereas a
right.
beginner, you want like 3+ months. But like on the other extreme side, like if you look at like the West Side guys who are really advanced lifters, right? They change almost every single week. For
The West Side, you mean like all the bodybuilders, the Olympians?
No, I mean West Side Barbell. They're powerlifter, particularly geared. They really geared powerlifters, but like conjugate Louis Simmons and stuff. But like they'll use safety squat bar with bands this week. Then they'll squat with spider bar, box squat, whatever. Like it's constantly rotating, and it's very 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 varied. But if you were to do that as a beginner and intermediate, you're not. That is very very terrible for you because you're never going to be able to handle that amount of variation. But people who are more advanced like them and more advanced lifters need that novelty. They need that, oh, this is new, so you're something to adapt to. Something new, something to adapt to. Now, and again, changing it every single week is very extreme. It's very, very extreme. That's about as extreme as it gets. But every couple of weeks, every 3 weeks, and then the less you go, the less extreme it is, right? Beginners, again, 2 to 3 months before you even think about changing stuff. And then intermediates, probably 4 to 6 weeks, roughly.
No, I like it. So I do the 4 to 6 weeks, and the reason I'm saying that is for the compounds. Like every time in my lifting career, every time I forgot my numbers on the big compound lifts, and every almost it's funny, beginners forget their numbers. They're not keeping track of them. So like they have like yeah, like if you ask a big intermediate or a beginner, a lot. I mean, not as much intermediate, a lot of beginners. Like how much do you bench or how much you do deadlift? They'll have that number that they hit on 1 rep max a year ago.
Yep.
And that's a problem because you should constantly be making improvements on that so your 1 rep max continue to increase. Especially because you have a lot of room to still go up. Like a lot of beginners can almost double their 1 rep maxes in the next year or so because they have a lot of room. My opinion, like always have those big three in part of your workouts. And you should always know your numbers. And based on last week's numbers, you should continue to make adjustments to your next week's numbers. Like if you don't do that, what happens is workouts turn into weeks and weeks turn into months and months turn into years and you're just lost. You're like literally going to the gym and you're, bench pressing 135 for the last 2 years and you haven't made much progress. And and it's funny, it sounds so common sense, but it's so easy to drop into that, like to fall into that trap over and over again because you're just not keeping track of your numbers and you just keep changing your workouts because 1 week you're following Charlie Martin's workout and next week you're following Larry Wheel's workout.
Right. And that's another good point because for those advanced lifters, people who are able to get to that level and need that kind of variation, they know their numbers for all that. That whole those 50 exercises in their library, they know every single number for all of them. They know their best on on more than 1 rep range too. They don't just know their 1 rep. They know their 3 rep. They know their 5 rep, right? And that's also something that is a bit of a differentiation between the intermediate and the advanced and the beginners is how well you know your numbers. As you graduate, the more you need to know your numbers, and in order to graduate, you will know your numbers. So that's also a very good point.
No, and I think like back to your numbers, like last week when I was at that conference and that guy literally started the presentation by saying human body is meant to hit plateaus or something like that. And I looked at his body, like that's the first thing I looked at. And I literally inside I was like, show me your numbers and I'll break your plateaus. Like, I mean, he was selling something. He was selling, product. And I was just like, yeah, dude, it was some BS shit. It triggered me and I walked out. But we hear people talking about plateaus a lot. And almost every time you're hitting plateaus on strength, and if you're not cutting, because I feel like almost everybody's first real contest prep or first real cutting phase, you're going to lose some strength. This is part of the game in the beginning. But even then, like a lot of people don't know their numbers to begin with, and they end up going off the fields. Like they're like, today I'm feeling 225 on deadlift. Let's just do that. You got to know your numbers. You got to have like either use an Excel sheet, or use like a notebook. I like to use a notebook. Whatever you are into, start recording your numbers, because that's what's going to separate you from everything else. And how often should you change your exercises? If you're an intermediate, like we said, like 4 to 6 weeks for the isolation work. And then the main compound, you should always be trying to grow those numbers, because the more strength you have, and it's not just about the numbers, right? It's kind of like money. It's kind of like money. They say like money doesn't make you happy, but like the pursuit of money, and like the more money you start making, you start becoming a better version of yourself, because you start gaining more skills. You start learning more things to make more money. Same thing here. If you can move, every week or every other week, you're increasing by 2 pounds, 3 pounds on your bench and deadlift and all that, you're becoming a more advanced lifter. You're advancing, you're getting better, because to move that weight, your form has to be on point, or at one point you will break. At one point you will hurt yourself. And so like the fact that you're always increasing your numbers, or you're like making progress, even if it's less like small amount, it tells me that you're doing something right. You're doing something right. And that's like something to give yourself some, tap on the back for, because you won't be able to do that if your form is whack and you're not, like, because then your body will biomechanically stop you. It's like, hey, nope, that barbell is not leaving the ground today on deadlifts, because you're fucking using your lower back and your lats are not activated, shit like that. So, yeah.
Yeah, so I have a couple of things. For the variations of the big lifts, and while I agree that you should keep the big lifts in there, you can have a variation of those. The thing about those types of variations is you also have to kind of qualify what variation is, right? Because variation can be a small variation or it can be a big variation. So let's say your bench press. Bench press, you can have, if you normally bench, well, it's not going to be good. For those listening, I'll just talk it out so you don't have to look at the video. If you normally bench, say, with your hands at 3 feet apart, right? But you move your grip in 1 to 2 finger lengths, that's a variation. It's very similar though, or out 2 inches, right? It's almost the same. You're still benching, you're still flat, you're still using a barbell, but it's very slight variation, right? So that's a variation that gives enough novelty that sometimes when you hit that plateau, because oftentimes when you hit a plateau, that usually means, okay, it's time for a switch of something. Not always, but oftentimes that's a good place for it. And then for squat, for instance, maybe you typically low bar squat. So an example of a variation would be high bar squats, right? Still a squat, still a barbell, very, very similar, but it's a little bit different. Or you're normally a sumo deadlifter. Now you're going to do a couple weeks of conventional, right? So it's still deadlift, but it's a variation of it, just enough novelty. But it depends on, again, your level. That's a little more that's a little more intermediate. A beginner probably doesn't need them yet. Beginner should probably just stick with the big ones, the ones that you're used to, not expand that library too much. But again, the more advanced you get, the more variations that you're going to need. An advanced guy might need bands, might need various other things just to make it a little different, right?
No, I love it. And I think like we'll keep this podcast pretty short because we answered the question instead of like boring you guys further. But yeah, guys, like you guys, hope this helped you guys, because a lot of you keep switching up your exercises too often. And you just don't there's no like metric to keep track of it. So start tracking your numbers, know your numbers by heart. And if you see yourself like, not making any progress in certain lifts, that's when you start asking for help, and that's when you start adjusting things. But most of the time, like, if you go up to an expert and you ask them a question like how to break a bench press plateau, we're not going to know what to do to you, because you don't even know your numbers. You don't know, we don't know much information about it. So just know your numbers really well. And like Madison said, like, a small variation is still a variation. So, you know, from like wider grip bench to like just, you know, bringing in 2 inches inward, that's a variation. Going from high bar to low bar, that's a variation. Sumo to conventional, that's a variation. And as long as you got the bigger pictures, bigger blocks and pieces, you will see that bodybuilding is not that confusing. Over time, like, things will start falling into pieces that you were like, holy shit, I wasn't even expecting that to fall into pieces. It's kind of like when I'm getting really lean for a show, like, I just do the things my coach tells me to do. I just do them. And by doing them, the abs just show up, you know, 12 weeks or 16 weeks. They just show up. And that's how you look at bodybuilding, even in my own life. Like, I just go to the gym because it feels good, and I just keep doing it. And then when I go to work, when I put my suit on, I get compliments and I'm not even looking for compliments, but you get them because you've been doing the work. And same thing is going to happen to you guys. Like, you just keep listening to our podcast, people start complimenting you. No, I'm kidding. But like, you keep listening to it, and your brain will start filling up with that information. And if you're taking the right action, see, it's all about action. And the thing about aligned action is you forget about it. You just keep doing it. You just keep doing it. You just enjoy it so much. You keep doing it, and the benefits show up. Like most of you are in corporate America, and you will see that, like, you know, those, what is it? You get discounts if you go to the gym 5 times a week. Like, yeah, you deserved it, but you weren't even thinking about that when you went to the gym 5 times a week. You just wanted your deadlift to go up. You wanted higher bench. Like, you had different goals, but there are all these benefits that come into play when your puzzles are into pieces. So that's all I gotta say. And with that, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to our YouTube channel, but also on our iTunes or Stitcher or Google Play. Please give us a review. We grow when you guys leave us feedback. We don't make any money on this. We don't have any ads running. This is really just like a value exchange for us. We really want more advanced, science-based lifters out there, guys who go to the gym and they have a good understanding of what's going on. That's what we try to do with this. We're not monetizing it. The only thing we ask is, like, whenever you listen to an episode, share it with one other person. Just one. Share it with one other person, because this message needs to be spread. And I'm fucking sick and tired of bullshit fitness coaches and bullshit fitness companies selling you guys bullshit products and making money off of it.
And we're here with the truth for you guys. So, and if you guys are getting benefit out of this, if you like what we're giving you, make sure you let us know. Leave us comments, leave us those likes, leave those reviews for the audio versions. And you always feel free to reach out too. If you guys have topics or questions you want answered, we will address them in future episodes. Me and Mo are always available, and you can email us at engineeredmuscle1@gmail.com. And
on Instagram, like, if you DM me on Instagram, I get DMs, but I'll definitely reply because I go through all of them. So my Instagram is Daddy of Fat Loss. Madison is Mastodon Strong.
Right? Yep, _strong. Yep.
Mastodon _strong. Daddy of Fat Loss. Pretty simple there. Yeah, just you know, follow us there if you guys don't already, and give us feedback, because we're always trying to get more guests on here. If you guys have any suggestions on guests of people that we should have on, we've already had Alberto Nunez. We love having, like, you know, meatheads and real scientists who actually apply, who are real engineers of their bodies. We love that shit so much. So let us know. And yeah, guys, we grow when you guys grow. And yeah, we want you guys to grow. And we want you to have a more science-based understanding of all of this. So with that, we'll see you guys on episode number 19 next week. And appreciate you guys for listening.
Thanks for listening, guys.